Greetings, my Rantians. Hope you all are doing well today, and welcome to another tier list using Tier Maker. Today, we're going to be covering the different NPC opponents that you could be going up against. And before we start, I just want to mention that these are my opinions on the characters. I played this game for over 2,000 hours. Yes, I know, it's a long time. And I've gone through a playthrough with pretty much every single one of these NPCs, so I know exactly what they do, how they are, all that good stuff, and I want to teach you about it because I personally have not seen a tier list when it comes to the NPC opponents, and it's kind of important because you're going to be the one to pick whether you want a specific NPC opponent to go up against you or not. So it's really important to know what they do, how they can benefit you, how difficult they're going to be, etc., etc. Before we actually start, though, if you're new to the channel, just found the channel, all that good stuff, first of all, thank you so much for doing so. Thank you for considering clicking on the video. If you want to check out the channel, it's right over there. We have an expert campaign series currently going on. The time of this recording, it's almost done though, but after that we're going to have a modded campaign series. And just in case you are new here and you don't know much about myself and my playstyle, I like to incorporate roleplay into my game, so it definitely helps enhance it a little bit more, and it gets a lot of people involved. There's definitely a decent amount of people within the Rantian community right now that are really invested into the story that we've made, so definitely, if you want to be brought up to speed on it, or if you definitely want to go check it out yourself, it's right over there. Definitely, there'll be a whole bunch of people willing to bring you up to speed on all that. Additionally, if you would like to join the Discord, the link is going to be in the description along with the main channel page. If you want to check out the Instagram, they're in the same locations. How are we going to be going about this tier list? Well, we're going to start off by sectioning it off between the easy level NPCs, or what the game considers easy level, then medium, and then advanced, going into the pirates. Now, the pirates are probably going to make a reoccurrence when I talk about the NPC traders in another tier list because they serve as dual purpose. One thing that I definitely want to mention is that the S to D ranking is not saying that you definitely need to have this particular NPC in your game. No, that's not how this is working. S is going to mean that they are a legitimate challenge and you definitely need to be on top of your game, and that is something that you definitely want to, like, for example, you say you want to go up against this NPC, you better know how to do it. It is very, very difficult to deal with them. They expand a lot faster than you. You will not catch up, and you have to make sure that everything that you're doing, you have a fallback every single time. Going into A are not as volatile, but they can be annoying, and they will definitely do something to make either them declare war on you or you declare war on them, because they're just going to be that aggressive in the way that they expand or how they're trying to be domineering over the player. B being balanced, they're kind of just like, okay, we have a good economy, we have a good navy, we might be hostile to you, we might be friendly to you. It really depends on how we are at that point or what you're doing, because what you do as well will drastically impact how they actually perceive you. That's one thing that I really like about the NPCs in this game, actually. C and D, they're just, for me, it's a cakewalk. For C tier, they might kind of pose a little bit of a challenge, maybe economically or militarily, but they're nothing that you can't handle. And then D, like absolute curb stomp, you can bully them regardless, and they won't be able to do a damn thing about it. So let us go ahead and start off with the game's considered version of easy NPCs, and we'll begin with the lovely Bente Jorgensen. I put her in balanced. B, 100%. I definitely think that she is the most difficult one of the easy, I say easy in air quotes, at level NPCs, and the reason for this is Bente has a interesting playstyle. If you guys go and check out the guide series that I have, I put Bente Jorgensen, Princess Ching, and Willy into the game as easy level NPCs. And seeing as how they're all categorized as easy, Bente's economy skyrocketed. She has a tendency of doing this. She can not only get a very good economy going, she can also have a pretty decent navy. So at the point of the end of the guide series, Bente actually did have a little bit of a better economy than we did, and definitely had a better navy than we did. Do note that when you're actually noticing the difference between the economic base and the military power is going to also take into account harbor defenses. So she had a decent amount of harbor defenses as well, and she was very advanced in comparison to the other two. As an example, in order to purchase one share of her island, her main island, and her secondary island, her main island was over 400,000 for one share, and her secondary island was around 220,000, if I remember correctly. The one thing that is really cool about Benta is that she's more along the lines of a pacifist. She doesn't want to fight with anybody. She wants to trade, she wants to help. The only issue that you would have is that if you decide to form an alliance with her, from what I have noticed, she does not ever like to form any sort of agreement with the pirates, and she'll just drag you into conflict after conflict. And really, what your plan is, and I know I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit, you want to try to form trade rights with the pirates because they're actually really good to trade with. You don't want to kill them off unless they really, at certain points, there's no end in sight and you have no choice but to do so. So she'll just constantly try to bring you into those. But apart from that, like, if you're expanding slower than her, she will kind of like it, because she does lead I don't know the exact lore behind it, but she is in command of the Jorgensen Trust. So that is a pretty substantial company, I guess, right? Apart from that, signing peace agreements, trade agreements with others, and alliances with others, she'll like that. I don't think there's anybody she genuinely hates, but apart from the pirates. But then, like, if you use a lot of propaganda, she won't like that. If you have a really polluted main settlement, she won't like that. If you have really difficult and strict working conditions, she won't like that. Or, flat out rejecting her offers for diplomacy. Like, any of those things she won't like. But for the most part, it's very easy to get reputation with her. Her quest line is relatively simple. The tasks that she gives you to do, very easy to make some quick cash from her. And when you trade with her, I think she actually offers some pretty decent items at times. It's not phenomenal, but it's not bad either. So that's why I put her in balanced. Princess Ching, I think that she is an absolute sweetheart. I'm going to put her in C because I definitely believe that if given time, Princess Ching she would actually probably have a better economy than Benta would. I've seen it before. It's rare, but I have seen that she has a better economy from time to time. But her whole character is that she's young, she's over here trying to learn things for the Imperial East, which we never really got to see. That's why I'm really waiting for that New Horizons mod. Oh my god, it looks so cool. If you guys haven't seen it, you need to go and look it up and watch the trailers and the development blogs. Mind blown completely, right? So as far as like her actual stuff, she is taking into account of I'm trying to learn all these things at once. So for example, when you put down like a train, the first train, she'll love that. She will really like it that you are trying to form like an agreement with her, like being cordial with her, destroying ships, not using propaganda articles. Those are really important for her because a lot of the NPCs at the lower end, they just don't, and for mostly across the board, maybe one or two, they won't like propaganda usage. She will dislike propaganda usage. Any form of like purchasing her shares, rejecting her demands like through diplomacy, any of those things like she won't like. And absolutely will despise you if you start trading with the pirates. Any form of agreement with the pirates through like a peace treaty or trade, she will not like. Do you care? No. Because at that point, your economy is probably going to be a lot better than hers. Your military is going to be a lot better than hers. So she's kind of like, at that point, someone that you would want to actually work towards removing from the game or putting her in a position that she cannot expand, constantly purchasing her shares, and essentially siphoning income out from her. It's really bad to say, but you have to make sure you engage the greasy goblin aspect of your brain at that point and make sure that she doesn't take an island that you really want. Willie, he goes here. I think his character is very passive. With regards to both of these NPCs, like, he's definitely on the slower end of things. In the guide series, for example, he definitely expanded the slowest. He likes to ask, all of them actually in the easy tier, they like to ask if they have permission to settle an island. That is okay. If you reject it, they won't be so happy. Just a little bit of reputation loss here and there. But Willie never offers anything substantial to you. Like, he's always the slowest. He always like has something to say about anything. If you expand faster than him, he won't like it. If you deny his request to settle an island, he won't like it. Rejecting his offers of diplomacy, he won't like it. His trade sucks. And then, signing peace agreements with some of the NPCs, he just won't like. So you can't, it's like, dude, so, like, what was that Austin Powers quote from Goldmember? Oh yeah. Oh well, so there's no policing you. That is essentially what he is. I personally I like to bully him if he's in my matches, and as I actually progress better to be a better Anno 1800 player, I just found that Willie, if he's in the game, I just do something in order to get rid of him. Either he sticks to his main island and I just literally impose a naval blockade on him so he can't do literally anything, watch his entire island constantly have rebellion after rebellion after rebellion, purchase all of his shares, and essentially completely curtail him. Apart from that, he literally does nothing else. I haven't actually, this is crazy, I've never gone through his full storyline. That is how much I probably bullied this man, and it's definitely a time. If in the future, because I'm definitely going to be on YouTube for quite a long time, I hope, I'll probably have a game involving Willie in which I will either A, completely ignore him, or B, say some, what to him, or C, all the above. So it's definitely an NPC that if you really, really, really want to take the game slowly and you just want to learn, because you don't necessarily have to have 3 NPC opponents in your games. You can always get like 1, you can have 2. The max is 3. If you just want to have him in your game, you'll be totally fine. If you want to take it very slow and you're just learning how to play the game, that's totally okay. He does like it if you buy shares of his island on occasion. If it gets too much, then he'll start saying, no, I don't like it. Finishing the World's Fair, he will like all that good stuff. Expeditions. Really, he's kind of like wishy-washy. So I personally I wouldn't play with him in my game much, if at all. So now we're going into the considered medium tier, and we technically have 5 NPCs in here that can be, a little bit more difficult. Some of them could be a little bit on the easier end, but now we're going to talk about it. George Smith. I actually really like George Smith, and I put him at balanced. He is definitely a very morally ethical man, okay? And one thing he really, really does not like are mines. The reason for that is actually a lore reason, because his father was killed in a mine. So if you put a mine down on your island, he will definitely comment about it, and you will lose a little bit of reputation with him. But for all intents and purposes, he is very, very kind. He is definitely a little bit faster when he comes down to like his economic base growing, and he will produce a pretty sizable navy if given time, but he's on the slower end, and definitely a really cool NPC to have in your game. I really think that in the grand scheme of things, he is like that unsung hero type. Like, he really likes it if you sign a peace agreement with the pirates, like especially with Jean. Like, if you sign a peace agreement with Jean, he will like it. If you start trading with, like, Benta, which these two would work very well in your game because they kind of bounce back off of one another. They'll never really fight one another because they actually like it when the other person is forming trade rights with them. And they might even go so far as to form an alliance. I have seen that before. And he really, at this point, because his whole character is about, I don't like fat cat industrialists. If you declare war on Carl, he will love you. If you declare war on Alonso, he will definitely love you. He just wants to, progress at a relatively decent, stage, and he does not like any forms of oppression. So if you have really, like, if you expanded the working conditions of your island a lot, or you're using a lot of propaganda, he definitely will not like that. So that's why these two kind of work together in that regard. And you will definitely lose a lot of reputation with him. If you sign any form of positive agreement with Carl or with Alonso, he definitely will not like that, because he just genuinely does not like those characters. So putting either Carl or Alonso in a game that you have George Smith in, probably not the best way of going about it. If you want to be a pacifist type, player, if you want to go for the economic type victories, for all intents and purposes, he's a really solid NPC, and I definitely would say, yeah, consider him. He's a good one. This man. Oh, okay. Artur Gasparov. I I think he's the biggest damn hypocrite I've ever seen. I'm putting him here. Why? Well, I'll tell you exactly. In the expert campaign, he was one of the NPCs. I just want it known. You have to get to a point that you use heavy industry. Like furnaces, steelworks, steam motor factories, all those things. And then he will just like out of nowhere pop up, be like, no one can see anything through this dense smog. And excuse my language, but bitch, what are those on your island? He literally builds a whole bunch of furnaces and all that stuff, but then will complain to you that you've done it. Oh no, that's terrible. That's the worst thing in the world. He's also the NPC that really, 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 really likes beautification. If you look at his islands, they don't look half bad. But that's not what really matters. What really matters is his economic base and what he's all about. So naturally, if you make museums, if you make zoos, if you make botanical gardens, he will like it because he's all about that, I'm this fancy schmancy type person. I really like the culture-esque of things. And it can get rather annoying. I have seen that Gasparov does tend to actually become a little bit too grabby when it comes to islands. And he does like to expand fast, but if you go up against an opponent that definitely likes to either declare war a lot, or heck, if you yourself want to, he'll like tumble like a bunch of like a sack of potatoes. You just push him over, he's done. He really tends to favor a lot of harbor defenses over ships. With regards to ships, he's more of the trade aspect of things, but even at the same time, he doesn't. I should actually retract on this. It's not the zoos that it's the museums and the botanical gardens that he really likes. He likes the cultural aspect of those, but on the flip side, he doesn't like the zoos. I remember that one because when I put down a zoo, he told me that I was bringing an oppressive a-hole and I should go jump off a cliff. Like, true story. But at the same time, if you were to like, he works also kind of well with these two NPCs, I guess. Benta is that one character that pretty much every single one of the NPCs are going to like at the end of the day. So maybe these three for one campaign, if you want a little bit more of an advanced type of game, would be a pretty decent set. But in the grand scheme of things, he's a real pushover. He's a pushover, he's a hypocrite, and because he is, that's why he's here. And, getting reputation with Gasparov, I find it to be difficult because my playstyle personally doesn't match his. But does he have, like, decent incentives? Yeah, sure. You can go through his quest line, which is kind of interesting. But at the end of the day, it's just another quest line. It's nothing that's just like, oh my god, this is incredible. It's just him being him. That's literally all I can say. He's kind of in the middle of the pack. His economy will get a little bit stronger than Benta would, a little bit faster. But the reason why he's in C is because he's more along the lines of, I'm just going to constantly poke at you and being an annoying shit, for the lack of better words, than anything else. That's it. Oh, Beryl. Beryl is something fierce. She is up here. Hands down, Beryl O'Mara can be the one person, the one NPC that literally expands the fastest through her economy, through her island grabbing, through her military, all that stuff. And she will not give a single damn what she does at that point. Not a single damn. She will constantly tell you and like, oh, I'm definitely better than you. She will like it that you are expanding slower than her. But at the same time, she really, really, really likes money. So, for example, if you build anything money related, let's say a bank, she will like the bank. If you build any form of like or put buildings in that help out with working conditions and all that stuff, like let's say the commuter pier, she'll like that one. She will also like it if you increase the working conditions. So Beryl would not be really beneficial to have in a playthrough that George is there, or Gasparov is there, or any of these guys, because they'll hate it. That being said, it is kind of interesting to see because you will get a really cool dynamic going in between the different NPCs. Normally, you can play one of two ways. You can either turtle for a while and really build up your economic base and your islands, and then go on an absolute tear, or you can just blitz everybody. Beryl likes to blitz both. That is what her character is all about. She will have a really strong economy and a really strong navy, and she will declare war on the other NPCs, and she will sprawl like no tomorrow. I kid you not. One actual game that I had, she went to from the old world, taking over most of the old world, went to the new world, took over most of that, even went to Cape Trelawney, took over most of that one, and Imbeza before I even got there. So she can go all over. I actually really like going up against her because she's an actual challenge. Not a crazy level challenge, but she is a challenge for me because she does tend to take islands that I really want very quickly, and that is mildly infuriating. Apart from that, she will like it if you sign some agreements with the other players, like mostly with Carl, because their dynamic and their mentality is relatively the same. We like a lot of industry. We like a lot of money. So therefore, because the ideologies are one and the same, we will stick together in this all the way through. Have I seen that Carl and Beryl have actually declared war on one another? Yes, I have. Is it rare? I'm not entirely certain I would consider it rare. It can happen because naturally over time, there's definitely a lot of hidden things that are happening in the back end of the game. So it can happen. It cannot. They can get to trade rights or they can just remain neutral. One of the ways like that. Apart from that, like if you are expanding a lot faster than she is, she's definitely not going to like that. Buying her shares, absolutely not, because that's taking away from her money. And, you know, riots for her are a big thing. So if you are increasing your working conditions quite a bit, or you're not providing enough luxury needs, or there may be some items in your trade union or your town halls rather that are causing a lot of unhappiness, she won't like that if the riots are getting out of control. She won't just immediately pop up and say like, oh my god, you have a riot, I'm gonna hate you right now. No, it's more like if the riot gets really out of control, that there are fires, that there's buildings that have been destroyed and stuff like that, that's when she's gonna start making fun of you and saying that you're incompetent. That's just really how her thing is. And then naturally, if you declare war on Carl, if Carl's in the game, as an example, I like to use him a lot, but you could also say Benta too, because you know they don't dislike one another. She won't like that, and it's actually a really, really big hit, so be mindful of that. Definitely a challenge, but not a true actual challenge going up against Beryl. Carl is interesting. I put Carl at A as well. He doesn't expand to the point, and I gotta be real, okay? I really, really, really like Carl. The way that he is, the way that he carries himself is so funny to me, because it's just like, man, you're that pretentious. You gotta give me that monocle. Like, when I beat you, I want the monocle for myself. But how the heck is he holding it up there? He must have, like, some crazy eyebrow strength. But normally, Carl is that one person that, if you like using a lot of propaganda, this man is gonna, like, literally worship you. There's no way he'll hate you for using propaganda. Because he knows at the end of the day, it's all about as much money as you can make and how you make it. So if you put a whole bunch of industry on your island, he will love you for it. If you expand like your commuter peers to expand your reach, he'll love you. If you're friendly with Beryl, he'll love you even more. Is there a little thing going on in between these two? I don't know. You ship it. I'm not going to. But that being said, if you allow, for example, the newspaper editor that I literally despise with every fiber of my being to publish a negative event and you didn't use propaganda for it, he'll be like, why did you do that? So he will actually, his reputation with you will go down if you don't clamp on to that, right? And I actually really like that whole little dynamic, because clearly he's telling you that don't care about what the masses are thinking. You need to focus on the end goal. It's actually quite practical in a way, the way that his character model, and not character model, the character design is made. Naturally, if you reduce the working conditions, because I don't see why you ever would, he won't like you for that because you're wasting time and you're wasting money. Riots getting out of control, illness is getting out of control, declaring war or peace agreements with certain NPCs, like for example with the pirates, he won't like. He just has this whole mentality of I have to defeat everybody through money and military. His military strength tends to get better than Beryl if they don't go to war with one another. And for some reason, the wiki likes to say that you can purchase all of the major stuff, like for example, for the hidden ships, like the Perforian ships or the pirate ships of the line, the royal ship of the line from Carl. I have seen them occasionally, but I think the wiki is giving him a little bit too much credit. I haven't seen all of that. I've actually gotten those through expeditions more so than I've gotten them from Carl. So I'm not entirely certain. Take that with a grain of salt. But in an actual game, he would be a lot of fun to play with, especially if you like to use propaganda and if you're a greasy goblin that really enjoys a lot of industry. Military strength wise, he's not going to really comment on it too much, so long as you don't really screw with him. He's just gonna be like, "Whoa, cool ships, awesome! Don't buy my shares, a hole, because I will digitally backhand you." That's what he's essentially telling you, and he'll obviously give you the side eye with his monocle. But when he smiles, he's got such a beautiful smile, man. Just, I like him. I like him a lot. I like seeing him in my games. Dr. Hugo Mercer. Now, I must apologize to my console friends. Justice for console players, dude. Outstanding. Like, honestly, I really think that at least the NPC should be there. I don't know whether Hugo Mercer is indeed in or available for you as part of Anarchist. I want to assume no, but he's also considered one of the medium ones. And this is where the console players, I apologize, you guys don't have access to this guy more than likely. And to be perfectly honest with you, based off where I'm going to put him, you may or may not want to have him in your game. I actually consider Hugo Mercer to be an actual challenge. Why? He adds a different level of strategy to the game that the other NPCs do not provide. Specifically through the use of sea mines. He will, in fact, deploy mines around his islands, or really where there's actual, like, harbor areas, rather. And it will definitely damage a lot of your ships. There's a lot of propaganda usage in here. There is an interesting storyline that comes from the Anarchist DLC, but let me be very clear. His whole character design is meant to screw with you. He does not like the ruling classes. He will not expand past engineers, but he will definitely be able to sprawl. Will he sprawl to the extent of Beryl? I don't believe so. But that's not where he's actually going to be excelling at. He will excel at the amount of times that he's either going to use propaganda or some sort of way to cause riots on your islands or anything of the sort. There's going to be a whole bunch of defectors. They're going to be detecting mines. There's going to be a whole bunch of like different items that can come out of this DLC, which is kind of cool. But at the same time, he does kind of have a thing for both Benta and Beryl. So it does kind of work. If you put those three in one match together, it would be rather interesting to see what happens. If I had to guess, it's going to probably be a stalemate in between Hugo Mercer and Beryl. More than likely, Benta's just going to have like an island or two because she just will not be able to expand as fast as she wants to. But at the same time, if you decide that you want to like form trade rights with them, he will like that, and that's pretty cool. One thing that he does really, really, really like, though, are if you're strict with working conditions and you put down farms, like potato farms and stuff like that, using actual anarchist propaganda in your newspapers, which is something that comes new with that particular DLC. And it is both a good thing and a bad thing. Some of them, for example, you get one that increases the working conditions by like over 120%, but at the same time, it does come with a negative event, so it's a little bit of a give and take in which your consumption levels go higher by like 20 some odd percent. By doing so, he'll like that, but if you're just using propaganda as is, he won't. In fact, he will like it if you publish the newspaper without propaganda, instead of, putting a lot of propaganda in there and then sending it out. If it has anarchist stuff in it, then he'll like it, but if it doesn't, then he won't. That's a little bit of a problem. If there are riots on your islands, he will like it, because naturally it's curtailing you a little bit. And really, it goes without saying, like, if you put down a zoo, he's not going to like it. He does not like anything as far as capitalism is concerned. He doesn't like anything as far as, like, maintaining the peace. You put a police station down, the dude is going to be like, yo, what the hell? Let the people riot. So he's all for the people, but the strategic element behind him comes through. If you actually go to war with him, he will be very, very, very difficult, I guess, to deal with. There is a tactic I can tell you that you can try, that I've done this before. Make a whole bunch of cheap ships, and I'm talking about like schooners or gunboats. Like, use some gunboats so they can actually be like, deal some damage. Make like about 10 or 15 of them, have your actual main fleet in the back, suicide charge those gunboats at that island, let them soak up all the sea mines and blow up, and then have your ships come in. Or alternatively, you can just get some items to outrange all of that and bomb the heck out of his ports. Either way, I think it goes without said that the longer the Hugo Mercer is actually left untouched in your games, the more of a problem that he will actually become for you. So definitely do not sleep on this NPC. He is designed to screw with you. Okay? Okay. Now, we're moving into the hard level AI, or at least what the game considers to be hard. And we're starting off with Admiral Vicente Silva. I actually really like him. And I believe that him being at A tier is probably really good in between a actual challenge and balance. I do consider him a challenge. In the grand scheme of things, Admiral Vicente Silva is probably the most reliable of the hard level NPCs, because he'll stick to his word. Okay, he's not like, he will respect you if you have a very strong military presence. He won't try to actually suicide charge into you just because, he's not that type of person. He doesn't work on impulse, he works through strategy. So naturally, if you're declaring war on somebody who deserves it, and how do you determine whether that person deserves it? Well, there's always this little thing you can do. If you go to the diplomacy screen and you click on the portraits of the different NPCs that are there, you will be able to see who they're actually at war with, or who they don't like particularly, and that is going to make him very happy. His expansion is balanced. He will start to take islands, and his economy will definitely be faster than yours, because at this stage, the AI gets a whole bunch of cheats. Okay, we have to be real with this. The NPCs will get a whole bunch of cheats. They can, heck, put down, I don't know, brick factories on an island that literally has no clay pits. I've seen it before, and they'll be making bricks out of it. That's just a very, very loose example. As far as later on, if left alone, he'll have a very, very, very powerful navy, which falls in line with his character, because he's technically, as far as the game is concerned, a true admiral of La Corona, which is the New World Empire that you technically kind of sort of go up against, or know of their existence. The game doesn't really do a good job on explaining the dynamic between the actual canon Empire of Anno 1800 and the canon La Corona of, Anno 1800. But there are mods that I can tell you that would definitely bridge that gap. So if that's something that you want to entertain, we're not talking about mods a lot in this particular tier list, but I think it's okay to just mention that they are indeed there, and they have actually expanded on that particular, bridging that gap, which is really cool. Expanding slower than him, increasing military strength, increasing the pollution on your main islands, he will love all of that, okay? Including propaganda. So technically speaking, you put all three of these in your game, that'll be a decent challenge. Like, if you're trying to get out of the intermediate and you want to like start to get to the advanced level of player, then these guys are really cool to have in your game. And it'll just be either like a total war type scenario, or it's going to be like, all right, if I declare some sort of agreement with him, then I know this one's going to like me, and I know that one's going to like me. So then I'm just going to buy them all out with shares. But do note, though, his economy is going to be very, very powerful. buying shares from him are going to definitely take a lot of economic toll on you, but that's also where he's going to be like, pump the brakes there, young one, because this is my shit. That is exactly the canon. That is exactly what it's going to tell you. And excuse me, that is my island. Have a little bit of negative reputation. If you expand faster than him, he's definitely not going to like that as well. And rejecting naturally any form of his, diplomatic approaches are going to be not seen very, very in a good way. He's not going to smile at you. He's going to give you that really stern look that he's giving you right now, right? He's a really cool character. His quest line is actually pretty cool. There was this one quest that I remember that you have to take a photograph of an actual fleet. I don't know whether it belongs to him, but it's been a while since I've actually played with him in a game before. But I think it's really cool to just witness a NPC fleet kind of just moored. You know what I mean? They're just there. You have to take a picture of that because he wants to know about it. And you have to take one of your ships kind of close because more than likely at that point, either you have the fog of war completely turned off, so you'll see the entire map. I personally like to play with fog of war on. I think it's cool when you're trying to find it and you just go through the fog and you see, like, I don't know, a fleet of like 20 ships, a mixture of ships of the line, frigates, gunboats, and all that good stuff mixed into one that you have to take a picture and send it to this man. Really cool NPC, decent stuff to trade with. Will sprawl if given the opportunity. Don't sleep on him. Fighting him is definitely very, very fun. I really like going up against him because he likes to use a lot of ships, and it's not just me shooting at a whole bunch of harbor defenses, outranging them, and cheesing the living hell out of the game. So definitely a very cool NPC. I recommend him. He's cool. He's cool. Alonzo Graves. Okay, this is going to be a little bit difficult to place him. His strategy altogether, he is the slowest expander of any of the hard level NPCs. That being said, he is in fact quite dangerous. And more to it, he just does not like anybody. Okay, he genuinely, wholeheartedly does not like anybody except for Benta. So, you think there's something happening over there? I think he's trying to just find a way to profess his love for Benta Jorgensen. Okay, that's just between you and me. But where would I actually place him on this? I still consider him to be a challenge. Why? Because if you're the type of person that likes to use propaganda a lot, even from early game, he's not going to like you. And more than likely, he is going to get a decent economy going and fleet before you. So if you're around like 30 reputation, which I guess it can kind of go without being said fully, that if you're at 30 reputation with any of these expert level or hard level NPCs, be careful. They're going to probably declare war on you. And what Alonso tends to do is he likes to spam a lot of gunboats early game, and they just start harassing you. They harass you like crazy. If you've expanded to another island, he will go and attack that island first, and then your main one, because he actually takes in the military strength quite a bit, more so than I feel like the Admiral does at times, because he's kind of like the neutral side of things. This dude's just chaotic. Like, for example, in a quest, you literally have to go and, I don't know, put dynamite on a random ship, watch it explode, take the beating heart, and then hand it over to a ship that he has docked there, and he just enjoys that. And some of his voice lines just make it be like, bro, you doing good? You need a hug or something? I wouldn't hug him. I feel like he would kill me if that were to happen. Taking over any form of island shares or rejecting any form of his diplomacy is definitely not going to like that. He's definitely a very volatile NPC, and he does not like the pirates at all. So one way, if you want, to actually farm a lot of reputation with him, which you won't be able to, like, by pulling this tactic, you won't be able to do this all the time with every ship that you destroy. But if you destroy ships belonging to Anne Harlow and Jean Le Fortune, then he will in fact like it, and he'll give you a couple of reputation points there. It's not for every individual ship that you actually like destroy, though. There more than likely is a background timer, so you can't go out of control with it. But is he probably a good NPC to have in your game? if you want to be conciliatory to the pirates, probably not. He will, in fact, enjoy it if you beat the living hell out of them and not care about anybody else except for Benta. So, like, maybe you can have these two in your game, and then, like, maybe, for example, Princess Ching or George Smith. Really, because he doesn't like any form of propaganda. These guys don't like propaganda. And if you're the type of person that is not really keen on using a lot of propaganda, then they would be just fine. Apart from that, you know, he does respect military strength over time. So when you, for example, build a ship of the line, he will comment on it more than likely, especially if you built one before him. That is indeed possible, I want to say, because he's slower on building up. You can get some ships of the line out there before he actually does, but the thing is, his economy is definitely going to be better than yours, and regardless of how slow he actually grows, then totally fine. Like, you are going to have to be some form of conciliatory to him, because him declaring war on you is going to be a lot worse if you're not prepared. He will indeed take any opportunity to defeat you. He is also the hard AI that I notice has been the literal punching bag if you decide to put all three of the hard NPCs in one game. Either Admiral Vicente Silva will defeat him, or the next person on our list will defeat him, and we're going to start talking about her right now, because I actually consider her to be the raid boss of this entire game, being Lady Margaret Hunt, and I put her actually before him, if I can even do that in this tier list. Hold on. There we go. Lady Margaret Hunt is by far the most difficult NPC to go up against in this particular game. She expands extremely fast. Her military, her economy, you will not ever be able to catch up with her. Early game, mid game, and late game will actually get to a point that you have to either consider being very friendly with her, which is difficult altogether, or you have to defeat her. Completely, utterly. The moment you declare war on her, it's over. You have to legitimately take her down to the last island for her to be like, okay, I'm going to pull a Ramsay Snow. You did say you wanted one-on-one combat, did you not? After, like, how many people died there at the Battle of the Bastards? That is how she is. She will kick names and take ass. That is the type of NPC that she is. Like, overall, I've seen her actually 2v1 before, and it's definitely very scary to witness. Very, very scary. Early game, she does offer you a decent amount of quests, so you can farm some reputation with her. And naturally, if you form peace agreements between yourself and Benta, or yourself and the pirates, specifically with Anne, because they're in fact family, she'll like that. But if you declare war on Anne, she definitely will not like that at all. As far as how she has more negative reputation modifiers than actual positive ones, so be very careful. She hates propaganda. Absolutely hates propaganda. If you take any form of her island shares, regardless of how happy she is with you, let's say that you miraculously brought her up to like 80 out of 100 on the reputation scale, she will still hate it if you take some of her money through her shares. If you are expanding faster than her, that doesn't really tick her off as much, because the thing about it is she's going to expand faster than you, regardless of whatever you do. Okay, so maybe 1 or 2 points of a reduction on the reputation is what's going to happen with her. But at the same time, and this is where it really comes down to the whole 2v1 thing, she hates Alonso Graves and Admiral Vicente Silva equally. That is why she will actually do her damnedest to beat the living hell out of both of them. And then you're going to be finding yourself in a very, very precarious position with you and the raid boss going one-on-one. And I want you to know, she has taken over total regions, complete regions, by herself. Complete regions. Imbeza completely was dotted with every single island, either colonized by her or in a massive war that, if you want to check out the expert campaign we waged against her, grand total, that war took about 4 hours. That is how much she had expanded. There is one good thing, though. If you have, and now I'm talking to my PC friends, and unfortunately I have to exclude my console buddies. If you guys do have the Passage DLC, the good thing about that one is that until you progress a certain point in the actual quest chain, none of the NPCs are able to get up there. That's pretty good. It's not like Land of the Lions or Cape Trelawney that the moment that you actually have them active in your game, the NPCs will be able to jump on the opportunity and go there already before you. It's not how that one region works. So can you have a holdout over there? Sure, but there's not much to hold out, period. What you can do is you can colonize every single one of those islands, and then if one of their ships pops up, they don't really do anything about it. Unless you've declared war on them, at which case be very careful because they will indeed fight for those islands. She is very aggressive. It's very difficult to actually become, get on good terms with her. So be very careful. The higher, if you want my honest opinion, the two NPCs that you really want to focus on getting their reputation up as quickly as possible are going to be Lady Margaret Hunt, if you can, and Admiral Vicente Silva, because he is just reliable. Alonso is a loose cannon. He's going to hate you at the end of the day, so just bear that in mind. Really, you can have Margaret Hunt in your game alone with yourself, and that would be a challenge. You don't even need to have anybody else. But if you really want to watch her 2v1, be my guest and then let me know how it goes, because she will beat them. Finally, ending off with the pirates, I really, truth be told, they're so easy to deal with. I personally don't want to put them in Curb Stomp, because it's not even that easy. I think the best place to put them would be in sea. And let me just talk about the pirates altogether. There are two ways to really go up against the pirates in Anno 1800. The first way is to constantly form ceasefires with them. It does kind of turn off a lot of newer players because they're asking for money. And the first initial payment that they ask for is a pretty decent chunk of your cash stack. So, leading into that, if you decide to take that route and definitely drop your cash stack by, let's say, 50,000 out of, let's say, 80,000 total, I would still say do so, but you don't have to do it immediately. One thing that you can do is you can actually really either turn them off entirely so they won't be in your game. I don't really recommend that one, but you can kind of keep them at either a balance level or you can jack them up to be expert level, okay? And by expert, I'm not talking about expert, these type expert. No, they'll just churn out more ships. It'll be a little bit more difficult to gain reputation with them, but it's not impossible. They will always be ready to declare the ceasefire with you. And what I actually recommend you do is, as a cheese tactic, if you actually haven't watched my guide series about this, if you make a whole bunch of soap in the early game and start selling it to Eli, you'll make a lot of money. So you can actually wait until you have that set up, make a lot of money beforehand, and then reach out to Anne and be like, hey, let's have a ceasefire. She'll be like, okay, how much? I think 50,000 is good. You pay 50,000 to her, you get a ceasefire for 2 hours. Perfect. 2 hours game time. Here's the cool thing about that, though. Every subsequent ceasefire is going to be less and less and less. Reaching to around 50, let's say you get over, because every time you form a ceasefire with the pirates, you're actually gaining some reputation with them. That's really important. You're essentially farming influence with the pirates little by little. And once you get up to around 50, I actually recommend get to 50, maybe even 51. That is when your payments, technically speaking, would be at around 9,000. That's the lowest I've seen. Sometimes they can be lower. I guess it really depends on the overall difficulty that you've set your game towards. But I think around 50 reputation, that is when you can 100% sign a peace treaty with them. They're not even going to ask for that much. Maybe at most 15,000, maybe go up to 20,000. I don't really think it's even going to be that high. It could even just be singles. It could just be like 9,000, 8,000. It's not going to be crazy much. But moment you form that peace treaty with them, it'll either, depending on who you have in your game, it's either going to piss them off or it's going to make them really happy. So, like, let's say for all intents and purposes, you have Margaret Hunt in your game and you formed a peace treaty with Anne. She will really like that, like maybe +8 or 9 reputation right over there. And the coolest thing about that is the amount of reputation you gain from getting a ceasefire actually allows you to form a trade route with the pirates at the same time. So you started at 50, formed the peace treaty, and then got the trade routes. You're looking at somewhere close to 75 to maybe even 80 reputation with the pirates like that. And that is what you really want. The pirates actually have pretty decent items, a lot of ship related items. They will also purchase a lot of beer from you for over 1k a piece. If you're in a bind, and I'm saying this very seriously, if you're in a major bind and you need a lot of advanced weapons, Anne is the person to talk to. Typically, I like forming a peace treaty with Anne more so than Jean. I feel like Jean himself is a little bit more on the volatile side of things because he just doesn't like any form of oppression, period. He definitely takes the approach of the authentic swashbuckler type person, right? So literally he's not going to care a majority of things that you do. But for example, in the expert campaign, we actually were friendly with him for a time, and then over time he started to dislike the approach that we were taking in the game, whilst Anne actually liked it. And in fact, when we declared war on Margaret Hunt, she said, "Oh, a war with anti-mags. You're destined for the grave." Not really, because we won and she didn't. But Anne is still in the expert campaign and has remained at 91 reputation with us, and I have been going there to purchase, like, for example, the occasional Perforian warship, an extravaganza steamer. Every single one of the ship items that I got from my battle cruisers came from Anne's Harbor. I literally gave her so much money that she was at 100 reputation with us, and now it's kind of just dropped over time, and I think the game's just kind of kept us at 91 for the longest time. So really cool. But when it came to Jean, we utterly had to destroy him because he actually declared war on us. So right now, because this is also one thing that really annoys me with the pirates and the pirate mechanic in this game, and that's again reason why they're here. They're never fully gone. So after, I don't know, like maybe an hour or so game time, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. I've never really timed it to see if it's actually equal intervals. But if you've actually taken over a pirate alcove, then they will send a small little expedition fleet to try to retake their island. And because they are hostile, and at that point, you've pretty much dominated that space, or you've dominated a decent portion of that space, in which you have a lot of trade ships going to and from and not so much of a military presence, because you can't position your harbor defenses in a way sometimes that really tries to track where he goes and where he comes from, you might lose the occasional ship. The announcer is going to come up and be like, "Ship under attack." Okay, great. I'll take a ship under attack. Okay, I understand. Ship under attack. Boy, I'm going to smack you. You know, that's kind of what tends to happen. And you can't turn it off. I think by this point in the expert campaign, he's actually tried. I actually have a paper right here. It'll tell me, because I've kept track of it. He's tried to take back his island, I'm not even kidding, 129 times. He's failed all 129 times. And then he asks, "What am I going to tell my wife and daughter?" I don't know. I don't care. Stop taking your island. You'll never win. I put like 12 Perforian warships in there that burn his ships to a crisp, if he even manages to get to them. I had to put harbor defenses all through the New World because I am a very, very stubborn person, and once I've taken some territory, I'm not going to ever relinquish it at all. So, in the grand scheme of things, he is definitely a interesting NPC. I wouldn't actually consider him to be more of a reliable source for stuff. Like, maybe later on you can trade with them. They do have the similar trade requests, so like you can sell a lot of beer to him. But in the grand scheme of things, Anne is probably going to be the one that you're going to be trading with the most and getting a lot of really, really cool secret ships from her, like Perforian ships, the occasional pirate ships, pirate gunboats, pirate ships of the line, all that stuff from her harbor. And then really, really good specialists to make your battle cruisers insanely powerful. Insanely powerful. If it wasn't for her trade resources, her specialists, and a channel subscriber, Torup, telling me about which specialists to get from her way back, we probably would not have won the war against Margaret Hunt. And it took out a lot of my ships in that time. It really did. Really, really expensive battle cruisers. So this is my tier list for all the NPC opponents in this game. I hope that you guys learned something, or maybe you'll think differently with regards to getting certain NPCs in this game, which ones you want to try out, which ones don't you want to try out. I definitely would love to hear your opinion on these guys, and tell me if there's anything that I missed. We'll have a conversation about it in the comment section. Of course, I just want to end off the episode by saying thank you so much for checking this out. Hopefully that your games are always going to go well. Let me know if you decide to go up against Margaret Hunt, Alonzo Graves, and Admiral Vicente Silva at once, and tell me how you, as the person having the popcorn in the corner, enjoyed the 2v1 battle between the raid boss and those poor souls. So, until next time, my Rantians, thank you so much. Please consider like, commenting, subscribing, hit that bell button, sharing it with your friends, and I'll catch you in the next adventure.